Without further ado, we have Andrew Morgan for the top attractor interview today. What's up, Andrew?
What's up, AJ?
How you doing, buddy?
Good, man. How are you?
I'm good. I'm excited for this interview. When I saw that you booked for this week, I was like, nice, get to chat with Andrew, get to highlight him, and I'm excited for it. So you ready to rock?
Yes, sir.
All right. So let's just start with what market are you in? How long you been in real estate?
So I'm in the greater Charlotte, North Carolina market. I know there's several other Charlotteans on the call here. So we're in a pretty heavily saturated eXp market, but I've been in real estate for, it'll be 10 years in 2023. And many of you know that I had the privilege of working with and under Mr. John Mikish for several years when I got into real estate. So just super blessed by that opportunity. About 3 years ago, I left John and started my own independent real estate company. And that was going really well. Obviously, it was kind of a hard split between us because we were very close friends at the time. And he was also just venturing off for his cross-country tour with his family. So I think time and distance kind of healed those wounds. And I'd heard through a little birdie that he had moved his independent brokerage over to eXp. I received a book in the mail not long after that from my friend. And a couple of weeks later, he showed up at my office here in Charlotte, and the rest is history. So we came over a year ago in July.
That's pretty cool. That really speaks to the power of eXp to kind of bring you guys back together. It's, the solution we're solving for so many top teams, top brokerages is losing great talent. I have to kind of see a little bit of behind the curtains with that whole scenario with you guys and how it all blossomed into what it is now. And it's just like, how cool is it when top talent used to leave a team, leave a brokerage to go do their own thing, start their own brokerage, go independent, and they're just gone forever out of your world. Now with eXp, it allows us to stay united and continue to work together. So
Absolutely.
Your guys' story, I think we could do like a little cool interview or something and really unpack that story maybe a little bit more. I think it'd be really impactful because I know from both sides it was a little emotional and just kind of it's hard when you leave people that you love because you got to go do your next thing, and to have you guys come back together and do this. Like when I heard that you were coming over, Andrew, I was so excited for mostly just you and John, because I know how close you guys were. And when you separate business, oftentimes, friendships naturally separate too. That's the way things work. So I'm so excited to have you back or with us now at eXp. So let's dive into what was the thought process. So you were essentially working with John, you were, I guess, COO, sales manager. I don't know your official title, but you're selling real estate, you're running the sales team. You decide, hey, I want to go independent. You go independent. So if you want to touch on that, you can touch on that, or you can just touch more on why did you come to eXp after going independent?
Sure. So one of the first things that happened after I decided to start my own company is I partnered up with a local broker who was really crushing it in commercial real estate here in Charlotte. And I really saw a synergy just kind of in our goals and personalities. He's a little bit younger than I am, but hungry and just had a growth mindset. I have had zero interest in doing commercial real estate, and I've been privy to a good bit of it just because my brother owns a commercial brokerage in Chicago, and I've known really since day one of getting into real estate that just wasn't my jam. And so having somebody that was doing it at a very high level and being in a market where we had a lot of clients who had a need on both the residential and commercial side in the past, I obviously just referred that business out. So it really just kind of made sense that we were going to partner up and start a residential piece. And that was going really well. I think the networking element of having somebody, again, producing at a very high level on the commercial side opened up a lot of opportunities for us in not only production, but also our recruiting. And so when, and he kind of knew that I was just coming off of having left John and the team at his brokerage here locally. And, I would talk about John and just my experiences, because obviously he was a big part of that story and my growth in the business. And so when John and I kind of reconnected again, spring or so of 2021, I didn't really share a whole lot with my partner at the time. John flew me out to Scottsdale for one of Brent's masterminds. I really didn't even know what I was walking into. I mean, I'm not a dummy. I had somewhat of an idea, but I didn't really know what to expect. I didn't really have any expectations either. So I kind of went into it with open eyes. It was just really good to be back out. I hadn't been on a plane since COVID had happened at that point, and I hadn't been to a real estate event really at that point in almost 2 years. And that was one thing that, I really appreciated that John always had contributed in my real estate journey, was he took me to events. We went to the masterminds. We went to all these different seminars. He introduced me to people that were, doing real estate at a very high level in many areas of the country. And after I left him, and that became, on me to take the initiative and frankly burden the expense of that, it really just kind of dropped off. So it was really a blessing to kind of get back out to an event. And I was blown away. I think the thing, AJ, that really stood out to me as I walked into this, that first event in Scottsdale, and the first person I see in the lobby is another agent from my market. And I was like, well, that's kind of weird. You usually don't want to run into agents from your market at a real estate event, because why would I want to share my secrets with my direct competitors? But I'll roll with it. And then I see another agent and another one and another one. And I was like, okay, this is very interesting, but I'll just keep listening. And I think the thing that really landed on me the most at that event was I was obviously very inspired. I mean, hearing everybody's journey was awesome. And I think if it were any other event and I didn't know those people specifically, I probably would have left feeling energized, and I probably would have gotten back to Charlotte and done nothing with it. But the fact that I knew these people, I had been selling real estate with them for several years, it made it a little bit more real to me. And so I just kind of took the initiative or I had the idea of, if they can do it, why can't I? Right. And so I really didn't overthink it, but I was on fire. I came back to Charlotte after that trip to Scottsdale, and I called my partner, Clifford. I said, hey man, where are you at? And I knew he was at he had a golf weekend somewhere, which if you know him at all, you'll know he's a very avid golfer. So I knew he was coming back from some golf trip, and he said, well, I actually just landed in Charlotte. And I said, well, I'm coming to pick you up at the airport. He's like, really? I said, yeah, I'll take you home, but we need to talk. So I picked him up at the airport, and literally in the 20 minutes from Charlotte Douglas to Mooresville, which is where his family was having dinner, I told him, I said, look, man, you're going to hear 3 letters come out of my mouth that I never thought I was going to say. And that was obviously eXp. And again, he just said, look, I'm in, let's do it. Obviously we need to do a little bit of due diligence on the commercial side of it, because that was still relatively new for eXp as a company overall. But we did that. And we just didn't really overthink it. Obviously I had a tremendous amount of respect and trust that if somebody like John Mikish was going to take his company over to eXp, especially knowing, and I know John said this before, what naysayers we had been for so long in this market, I didn't really need to process it much more than that. I knew that it was a decision that he and many others who I have a great deal of respect for had made previously, and I wasn't going to let that fast-moving train pass me by.
That's awesome, man. I love that story. That's a great analogy too. Don't let the fast moving train pass you by. So you guys were naysayers, you guys were like, look, what's AJ doing? He's crazy, forget about eXp. So you had that mindset, John was, sounds like a little vague getting you to Scottsdale. It sounds like it was kind of maybe a chance to connect, to enjoy the beautiful weather there in Scottsdale, hang out by the pool a little bit. Plus, we had a real estate conference, which is a great strategy. People will fly places to hang out in beautiful places. That's why we always have great events like Cabo coming up. So you show up, like you said, you left there on fire. Like, for those who haven't been to an event yet, or those who are like, well, why am I gonna, buy someone's plane ticket to get them there, or their hotel room, or their event ticket? Like, why am I gonna invest money into getting them there? Like, what was so powerful about that event? You said that you saw local agents there, and you're like, well, if they can do it, I can kind of do it. Like, for you, was it like, the revenue share, I'm guessing, got you excited, but like, why? You had just started a new brokerage. Like, what was it about what you saw that was like, man, I got to do this?
So it was a few different things, AJ. First and foremost, I think just seeing the people that were there and having had the privilege in the past of getting to know some of those people. So, Lars was there. Again, some pretty big names in my market here in Charlotte. Jay Kinder was there. And I think that was one, I didn't have the opportunity to really get to know him well, but I knew that he was part of John's past in real estate and somebody that he had been coaching with, several years back. And so just to see the caliber of agents that were at that event, again, that got me excited. And I'm like, wow, like they're all in one room. And I think that's what really, kind of landed on me, because you go to these other events and you might have one kind of big name there and then, some other speakers and they're all good. But to see the powerhouses that were all in one room. And I remember telling John, and I know he'll remember this, we were kind of walking down the hallway, I think on day 2 of that event. And I said, man, this event feels different. And he's like, really? How so? And I said, there's no ego here, man. And he's like, I know, it's weird, right? And I said, it's totally weird. Like, it's kind of freaking me out a little bit, because I just wasn't used to that. You go to those events, and again, it was really just a big ego fest. What kind of volume are you doing? Oh yeah, we did 1,000 units this year. 20 million, 50 million, 300 million, and it just always felt like a competition of ego. And that was not the vibe that I was picking up at all at that first event. And for that matter, any big event that I've been to since. And so I think that was kind of the first thing. The revenue share piece, yes. And I'll leave some names out, but I do tell this story pretty frequently. John and I were having dinner with a couple of guys that he had just signed up down in South Carolina, and it was really good to get to know them. But there was another agent from my market having dinner at a table nearby, and I saw him out of the corner of my eye. I wouldn't say that I knew him well at the time, but I definitely knew of him and kind of knew his history in my market. In fact, he had walked into my office maybe a year prior to potentially recruit me, but I was in a meeting and wasn't able to talk with him then. But he kind of walked over, and John said, hey, come over and tell these guys how much you're going to make in rev share this month. And he said, John, I don't like to talk about that kind of thing. And John said, well, I'll tell him then. He said, he's going to make $100,000 this month in rev share. And we kind of all looked at each other like, are you kidding me? And he says, John, it's not 100, it's 97. And that was my moment. I call it my agent name moment. Again, I'll leave the name out, because I really felt like if that agent can do this, then there's absolutely zero reason I can't. And so that was the moment at that event that my eyes and ears really kind of tuned into what I was actually absorbing and bearing witness to, where beforehand, I truly came out there with the intention of just picking up a few nuggets to take back to my team, more listings, more buyers, whatever it was. And, that was kind of the lens that I was viewing that from. And after that night, day 2 and 3, I really just kind of took it all in. So
that's amazing. I love that. And that's the power of events. Like you cannot replicate that outside of events, and anyone who's been to events and has plugged in at events, because that's the second step. You got to show up, and then while you're there, also plug in. meet people. We all have a story like that. I remember early on when I started going to events in my first year at eXp back in 2017, just like hanging around like Rob Flick and Gene, and like whenever they would flash their revenue share dashboard, I'd be like taking a picture, and I actually logged them all in a spreadsheet. Like I dated it, how much money it was, how big the organization was, because I wanted to track my progress against theirs. And I mean, back then they probably had 500 agents, and now it's like 18,000 or whatever it is. Rob's about to hit 20,000. Just crazy. It's inspiring, and I have the same thoughts that you had. And I think I know the agent you were talking about. I hadn't heard that story, but the way you told the story, I was like, I know exactly who he's talking about, because you actually, your tonality was a lot like his, the way he would say it. But really, he loves saying how much money he's making in rev share. Oh, I don't like to talk about it. He's like 97,000. It's like, it's just absolutely inspiring. And I'd always think, man, if this guy can do it, if Gene can do it, I can do it. If Rob can do it, I can do it. Brent can do it, I can do it. Because when you get around these people, and anybody, and you're standing next to them, at a cocktail reception or whatever, at dinner, you're just like, they're just normal people, everyone's just normal. Nobody has anything going into this for the most part that gives them a huge leg up. Maybe if you got like some unique relationships, that of course helps, or coaching company, things like that, but none of those guys had that. And then look where they are now. So pivoting a little bit, so talk about how big is your rev share group right now, and then let's talk about your approach to building your rev share group. So how big is your group?
So I had gotten earlier this year up to 75, and it wasn't long. I think actually in Cabo last March, I hit 70 in my organization. We got up to 75, and we've had some attrition this year. Yet my revenue share has consistently been the highest that it has in the, now a year and a few months that we've been at the company. I think that what's unique to how we're building is we do have the commercial real estate component of it that we've really placed a good amount of emphasis on. Again, at that event in Scottsdale, I believe that was Jim Wong's first event with eXp. And so commercial was really just being kind of rolled out and formalized. There was a lot of excitement behind it. I feel like a lot of residential agents are very hesitant to talk with commercial brokers because there's just always been this division within the industry between what commercial agents would call realty and commercial real estate. I love that in the conversations I've had with Jim over the past year, he's really trying to break those walls down a little bit. But at the end of the day, I think there's a good opportunity yet in a lot of markets that are saturated, perhaps on the residential side, to have those conversations with commercial brokers. And I'll share with you that the nice thing about bringing commercial brokers into your organization is they sell one property and they're pretty much going to cap for the year. And their cap is actually a little bit higher than what it is on the residential side at $20,000 as opposed to $16,000. But when we first hit, I want to say 7,000 or 8,000 in rev share, I was like, where did that come from? And then I kind of looked down on the transactions. I was like, oh, this guy, capped one deal in. So that was pretty awesome. Outside of that, and John, just to kind of echo something that you were talking about on the training earlier, I've got a couple of recruits that I brought in smaller markets. One happens to be in my hometown up in Michigan, and he's in a market that's not eXp hasn't really established much of a foothold. It's a small market. When I tell you, in Charlotte, we've got roughly 15,000 agents in our MLS. In his market, he's got less than 500. So I mean, it's a pretty small market. But when he's having conversations with agents in his market, they'll ask him like, well, do you own the company? Because they literally haven't even heard about eXp. So when he first told me that, I was like, man, this is a great opportunity. So kind of like what John was talking about, I just started reaching out to agents in his market and just striking up conversations where, I just like a post or, send them a message and say, hey, congrats on that sale. I'm actually from your area originally. I think it's so cool to see that real estate's still killing it. How's the market? How's business this year? And just starting the conversation. Maybe a few of those revolve around Michigan football, which I'm proud to say I'm a fan again of after so many years. But anyhow, the approach that I'm taking from that point is, look, I've got a partner in your market, and we're actually looking to open this market up. And I was curious if you might be willing to grab a cup of coffee with him and just kind of chat about eXp and see where we might be able to help your business. And so it's really kind of a different approach than I would take here in Charlotte, where everybody's heard about eXp. And it's not like, hey, have you heard about eXp? You're going to get laughed at if you ask that question here in Charlotte. Now it's a different approach altogether. And so in some of those smaller markets where eXp maybe hasn't established themselves as much, you can kind of look at it more like, hey, we're opening this market up. We're looking for brokers to partner with or agents to partner with, really to kind of get it off the ground here. So I had some luck with that.
I love that approach. For those looking to implement it, you follow them on Facebook, you friend request them, whatever, you like their posts, comment on their posts, send a couple messages. How long specifically for this guy, for example, did it take until you were actually able to open that door where he was like, yeah, I'll take a look at eXp, and then how long until he joined? So like, give us the process from, first time connecting to he actually looked at the opportunity to he joined eXp.
Yeah. So John knows this about me, but I always try to find some connection with whoever I'm talking to, and our families had traveled quite a bit, and we could be anywhere. And I'm going to somehow find somebody on that trip that, knew somebody that I knew from back home or whatever the case may be. In his particular case, he was selling in a even smaller sub-market of my recruits market. And it happened to be a town that I was born in. So I really kind of started with that. I said, hey man, it's so cool. I was actually born in your town. It's been, I'll be 45 this year, but it's been a long time since I've been back there. It's really awesome to kind of see that there's a lot of activity going on. How is the market this year? And, he kind of responded to that. Again, we talked a little bit about football because he was posting quite a bit about that. And so, just kind of being friendly. And then, I just asked him like, hey, out of curiosity, has eXp come into your market yet? And he was like, I don't even know what that is. I said, oh, that's awesome. I said, well, I'd love to send you a couple videos if you have some time this weekend and would watch them. I'd love to get your thoughts on them. And I sent him, one was the Inman video, AJ, that you had posted several months back that I think is just a gold mine. I still think it is. And I still think it's relative or relevant enough rather right now that we need to be using that video. And so maybe repost that one today, but I just
reposted it like 2 hours ago.
Did you? That's awesome. I didn't see that. So I sent them that video just to kind of stimulate the conversation a little bit. You know what I mean? Because I think what I've found with agents in outlying markets and smaller markets, they don't really know a lot about what's going on with some of these bigger brokerages, either because they just haven't come into that market. But I do know they definitely haven't had a lot of access to the trainings, the coaching, the mentorship that agents in a very thriving or bigger market have had. And so I think just exposing him a little bit to that is really kind of something that can get him excited about the fact that there's a world happening in real estate outside of, in his case, a small little sub-market of a sub-market.
That's good.
And so I started with that. And then I just sent him, actually on that one, I sent him the eXp Explain video because he was just a single agent. I really find that that's a good one for those. If it's a team leader, owner, broker, then I might send a different video that's a little more high level. And so, it was really that. And then I didn't hear anything for a few days, checked back with them. I said, hey, did you have a chance to watch the video? Of course, it was no, I've been busy. I said, oh man, well, I'd love to And that's when I introduced Brian, my partner up in that market. And I just said, well, hey, have you heard of Brian? And Brian's a top producer in his market. And he said, yeah, we've done some deals. I said, that's awesome. I said, well, he and I are actually opening up the market there for eXp. And I'd love to connect the two of you just to kind of see if you got anything in common. And like I said, just made that introduction. And so I'd say, from start to finish, and we haven't brought him over yet, but we're still talking with them. It was about 2 weeks before we got him in person with Brian up there.
Yeah, I love that. That's gold. That's a great point. Like exposing agents in small markets to like the training that's available through eXp, because it's like, if you're at like a Keller Williams or a Remax in a big market, well, you're probably getting decent regional trainers through the office. You might have been invited to their big conference, but if you're like a smaller firm in a smaller market, it's like, they're still like carrying around the MLS books, and you show them
100%, and they're not being recruited either. I think that's the other thing that I found. When you're in a major market, everybody's recruiting you. I get 3 or 4 texts a day right now from different brokerages. And when you're in a smaller market and there's only a handful of brokerages even in the marketplace, they're not getting recruited like we are in some of these bigger markets. So I think they're a lot more open to the idea that, hey, there could be something else out there, right? And not maybe as resistant to it.
Were those all were those follow-up messages? Were they messages, text messages, phone calls? How are you following up with him?
Yeah, mostly with that one. And it's all different, but with that one, it was all through Messenger, just because that's kind of how the conversation started.
That's awesome. Yeah, I love it. I hope everyone's taking notes. We should just call this and actually like train around like a niche, call it the hometown niche. It's like you can do like go to like your aunts, your uncles, and find all their hometowns and just start reaching out to agents. Oh, my aunt was actually born in nowhere, Missouri. That's so interesting that we connected on Facebook. And then like expose them to eXp. I love that. I think that's a great strategy. So cool. We got a couple minutes left. What are you focused now in terms of agent attraction? What's like, I guess, your like number one source of new conversations? And then what are your goals going into 2023, if you've looked at those yet?
Yep. So obviously my goal is to stop the bleeding and stop the attrition in my organization. And, I think that that's really just going to come as simply I could put it as talking to more people. I think it's the number one sales advice I ever received, and you can overcomplicate it and overthink this thing 10 different ways, but you just have to talk to more people. And that is a combination of being consistent and having intention in those efforts every single week, but getting out there. I mean, I just went to a networking event yesterday with a lender partner of ours here locally, got to see a lot of eXp friends here in our market and just kind of chat with them. And then a lot of agents that, I haven't met before. And I think the cool thing at this point is I've got some relationships with people that aren't necessarily agents and brokers, but are in more of like a network marketing space. So media companies, you're starting to see this in a lot of different markets as well. But I know a couple of people here that have really done a tremendous job building a network of real estate agents, and I've become friends with them just on a personal level. And one gentleman happens to go to church with me, and so he was there, and I just sat there, and everybody that walked into this event, he was like, "Hey, do you know Andrew Morgan? He's killing it with eXp up here at the Lake Norman area." And like, I didn't even have to say anything. So it was beautiful. I just kind of sat there and, nodded my head and smiled, but took good notes as to who I was talking with, went right home that night and friended them all on Facebook, sent them a message. "Hey, it was great meeting you guys. Let me know if I can ever do anything to help you." I'm not the, salesy, recruity type, not in this market. It just doesn't work anymore. And so just really coming from a place of service and networking, but I think just getting out there and talking to more people. One thing that I'd add, AJ, and I think it kind of started you inviting me to come talk on this call. I was doing these emails to a list that I had kind of accumulated with agents in our market. And after the Tuesday production calls, I was basically curating an email to go out saying, hey, what are your goals for the rest of 2022? Or are you charging a transaction fee? Whatever the topic was, right? And then I was just going on Lars's B School YouTube page. I was taking the link to that video from the training that day and including it in there. I took the graphics that we're posting in Game Changer Nation that had the schedule of trainings for the week. And it was more like, are you guys plugged into a weekly, monthly training session? Do you want access to free coaching and mentorship? And then I'd just share the video. And then the week after that, I'd send another email back out inviting them to the training. I didn't put the link in the email, obviously, because I want them to reach out to me. So I'd, have a little graphic that said, if you want the link to this week's training, just, shoot me a quick DM. And I was getting a lot of responses to that over the past few months. So it really kind of made me realize, one, we're definitely in recruiting season, which is just historically that time of year. And two, agents are more open right now than I think they've been in the past 2 to 3 years for obvious reasons. The market shifted. The deals aren't coming in like they were in 2021. And I could just sense that agents were more open to it. So from that point, I was following up with them. I'd get on those calls, and as they're, I'm looking through everybody that's on the call, I'd just shoot them a quick private chat here in Zoom and say, hey, great to see you on the call. I hope you enjoy the content. I'd love to get your thoughts about it afterwards. I'd follow up with them after the call and try to set a time to actually meet up for coffee or something like that, or just at least have a phone call. And so that was really working well. I kind of got a little inconsistent with that over the past month because I've been dealing with some family issues here. I've also been building out my platform with Lars and John and hopes that that's going to kind of automate a lot of what I was doing manually. But I can't tell you enough, like that strategy alone, I was getting more interaction with than probably anything that I've done over the past year.
That's amazing, dude. I actually don't think I knew you were doing that. I'm glad you brought it up. And I mean, we could talk a whole nother call just about how you're doing that. And, that's obviously what we talk about in GC Attract, the marketing platform that Lars launched a couple months back. Where was that initial email list from that you started emailing, and how many people was it?
So I got it from Broker Metrics, which you may have trouble getting in your market if you are not the broker. I happen to maintain my brokerage membership with our local MLS from my independent. And so I was able to get access to Broker Metrics. That initial list, I started with about 1,500 agents, and I had about an 80% open rate with about a 60% click-through rate. So I felt like that was really strong, because any marketing email that I've sent out to, the buyers and sellers in my database over the past few years was nowhere near those results. So I was very happy with that. I actually then increased it about a month ago to over 5,000 agents.
That's awesome, dude. That's really cool. And it's a great strategy too, if you're not using like Broker Metrics, or if you don't want to send mass emails. It's more like, using the hometown niche strategy. It's like reaching out to somebody, hey, same messaging. Are you plugged into weekly training about, how to get 100 listings per year, like whatever your script is going to be in that initial message. And if they're open to like coming onto a free training, well, that's how you build your email list one by one. It's very simple.
Well, and let's not forget, we talk all the time about building your top 100. So just start there. I mean, before I had Broker Metrics, that's what I was doing. In addition to building my own list, I would go into our MLS, and one by one, I'd print out the production reports of agents, and I'd just put them on a list. I'd then track down their emails that are, if you can't find this stuff, then I question, why you're even in this business to begin with. But the resources are there. You just got to kind of dig a little bit. It's clunky, it's manual in nature, it takes more time, but start with the 100. If you send out a list, or if you send out an email to 100 people and 80% of those are opening that, and out of those 80, you get to have one conversation, I promise you that's probably better than what you're doing on a weekly basis with most other activities. So,
yeah. And it's all value driven. Sometimes I'm in so many real estate Facebook groups, so every time I see like drama in one, I always like leave it because there's a lot of drama in these groups. But Labco Agents is one that I'm still a part of, and which is cool. The founder of Labco Agents is now at eXp, which says a lot. That's probably the #1 Facebook real estate group, over 100,000 people. But everyone's always got to start the eXp topic. It's a hot topic always in these Facebook groups, and then everyone will get in there. All the trolls will be like, well, not trolls, but some of them are trolls, but they'll get in there and be like, all these eXp agents keep calling me and trying to recruit me, and like think about that versus like you never see all these eXp agents are calling me and trying to invite me to world-class training to help me grow my business, and they want to support me. It's like, and that's like what you're doing. You're adding value first, and that's the strategy, like you said, in especially saturated markets. You got to lead with value first, relationships first. Whereas in markets where it's not so saturated, you can still kind of like go for the appointment set a little bit quicker. A couple questions here we'll hit real quick. Ryan Anderson asked, Andrew, which video have you been sending to your commercial agent prospects?
So there isn't any one great video for commercial, but commercial does have a lot of content on YouTube. And so my partner, Clifford Blankwissett, I would say is one of kind of the forerunners on the commercial side of the business with eXp with regards to agent attraction. And he's done, and they call them eXp Explain. So you'll see James Wong interviews different kind of high performers on the commercial side. Again, they're grainy. They're more very similar to a Zoom call like this. But I think more than anything, what I've learned with commercial is they do not like the fluff. I mean, it is all about the numbers. And so having at least a basic understanding of the value proposition on commercial is probably going to be more impactful than sending a video, because these guys just are not into the same thing that as residential agents we're open to and are used to. They just want to know, how much is it going to cost them? What do they get? And that's it, right? A lot of commercial brokers, it's not a full-time gig for them anyhow. And so, I guess the way they look at the opportunity is very different. So at least just having a basic understanding, and then having a resource to be able to connect them with, whether it's, all the way to Jim Wong, which I promise you, he'll make himself available, or somebody like Clifford, my partner here in Charlotte, just getting them on a call with that. It's almost a no-brainer on the commercial side based on the value proposition right now.
Yeah, I know. It's when I talk to commercial agents, I don't know a lot about it, but it's like every time I hear about it, they're like really in love with the split and cap. Like it's super, like it crushes like all these other brokerages. Oh, yeah. Is there a separate presentation, like a slide deck for eXp commercial?
If there is, I honestly haven't seen one, but they're very well maybe. AJ, I'd have to do a little bit of digging on that.
Maybe one thing that we could do early next year is like an eXp Explained with Clifford, and just like like myself or John or you could interview Clifford to kind of like have a conversation around it, but that's very impactful. And then we could use that eXp Explained commercial version. Next question, I'll take this one. Tammy asked, what's the leading cause of attrition for you guys? Right now, we're kind of just in a season, and this is going to be different for smaller organizations. If you're sub like 100 for sure would be a good number to say. Like you'll get attrition if you're not constantly talking to new people. Like you can see your group go backwards, which is what Andrew has seen. So the key thing with that is there's always attrition to brokerages, there's always attrition to teams. And what cures that is, retaining the talent is a factor of it. But even more important is getting new talent, getting new builders. But if you just look at the industry as a whole, right now, what do we see on the news? We see high interest rates, we see fear, uncertainty and doubt. We see, a recession looming, or we are in a recession. The definition of a recession is like changing. Like we see all this like confusion in the markets. And when that happens is less people get their real estate licenses, and the new agents that are only selling a couple of homes a year, or one home a year, or no homes a year, they lose hope. And they're like, man, I better get back to my safe job, because what I had hoped would be a successful real estate career, that dream is done for, because we're going into recession. So they're actually dropping MLS membership and leaving the industry. So I heard a stat in the last couple of weeks that the state of California, the board of realtors there, is actually like losing like net 300 agents per day. Like it's that many. So when you're looking at a revenue share organization or companies, whether it be Remax, Keller Williams, eXp right now, you're just naturally going to see a lot of the low producing agents leaving, and then you don't have the agents joining. So not only do we have less people joining right now, we also have more people leaving. But we have this data. I don't know if you've seen it before, Tammy, but I can go into my dashboard, pull a report of all the offboarded agents and see how much production they have done in the last 12 months. And I should do a Zoom and like do a screen share sometime to kind of show it. It's kind of cool to look at. I check it maybe twice a year, but the vast majority, probably 90+% of the people are not cappers. Well, for sure not cappers. It's probably like 99% are not cappers. It's probably like 90% don't even like sell more than 2 houses a year. So we're losing the non-producers, and that's an industry problem right now. It's not an eXp problem. And what's important right now, being in recruiting season, is it's even more important now to make sure that you're going after capping agents selling at least a home a month. Like, I would not be talking to anyone that's selling less than a home a month. Sure, if they fall into your lap, talk to them about eXp, have them join eXp, that's great. But if you're proactively looking to build your list, like we're talking about, they got to be capping agents, because capping agents are going to stay in the industry. Capping agents are going to weather the storm. It's an industry thing that we're going to deal with for probably the next year or two for sure. So great question.
I love what Kathy Burns just posted. I mean, there really isn't a solution to a problem that doesn't exist at this company. And so it's like, if you've got an agent that's not really doing a lot of production right now, get them set up on the referral program with eXp, where they can, no MLS dues. What did she say? $50 a month for an active license. They're on a 75-25 split with no cap. And you just never know, that person might refer you to a builder. Right. And so, don't just forsake them because they're not producing altogether. But then I'd also just back that up by saying, I think something that I've always really been focused on since I came in is really just staying focused on my front 2 lines. I can't control a lot of what's happening, third, fourth. I've got agents on my 5th level now. I haven't unlocked those levels, so that's also a focus for why I'm really narrowed in on my front 2 lines. But there's a lot you can't control once your organization starts to grow, as and I just think if you stay focused on the smaller piece of that and really teaching your front line to go out and duplicate what you're doing, you're going to see better results that way too. And it won't feel as overwhelming.
Yep. You got to focus on what you can control. That's it.
Yeah.
A couple more questions. I'm just going to hit them real quick. Then I got to hop on a call with potential level 1 recruit here, which is exciting. Ryan Anderson, in terms of like getting them to feel the culture, I'm not going to recommend any website. I'm just going to say, like, constantly be inviting your people to the Tuesday and Thursday calls. Like, just be inviting them to the Zoom calls. Logging into a website isn't going to help anyone feel the culture. What's going to help them feel the culture is getting on Zoom calls on the Tuesdays and Thursdays if they're interested in rev share. But for sure, the Tuesdays. If they're already at eXp, remind them, hey, every Friday there's a company-wide meeting. Like, so it's more just like, you're going to be your touch with your people, getting them plugged into things versus just hoping they log into like a website. Kathy, yeah, that was a great recommendation, Kathy, about having them join the referral company we now have. So we didn't have that before. A lot of agents that will be leaving the business, if they could join the referral company that we have and not pay MLS dues and just have a 50-month fee instead of 85, they'll stay licensed at eXp and they'll do referrals here or there. So that's a great solution. Thank you for sharing that, Kathy. We should all be more proactive with our level 1s to tell them, hey, just want to let you know, we now have this. So if you were thinking about maybe dropping your MLS dues because you're not selling a lot of houses right now, this is an option. That's a great way to retain them. So good stuff. Well, cool. This was so good. Andrew, really appreciate you coming on, man. And keep up the good work, my friend. And we'll be talking soon.
Awesome. Thank you, guys.
All right, later, man.